I want to talk a little bit about political and how that impacts on politics. We recently discovered an interesting document. It was, if my memory is correct, it was the 1956 Republican Party platform in which Dwight D. Eisenhower was running for re-election. It was really remarkable. Eisenhower in 1956 was taking credit for expanding Social Security, for raising the minimum wage, for having a program which would be today a Democratic program. That's what it was. In the last 50 years, and most recently in the last 10, 15 years, the Republican Party has moved from being what we call a center-right party to a right-wing extremist party. People like Dwight David Eisenhower and many of the senators who came from the state of Vermont would no longer find a home in the Republican Party at all. They could not join the Republican Party. Now, you all have followed what's been going on in Washington in the last couple of weeks. And the reason I got here late today, I missed my plane because I was voting at 7 o'clock in the evening to reopen the United States government and not default on our bills. Right now, you have, the focus was on Obamacare and the goal of the Tea Party folks to repeal Obamacare. But what I want all of you to understand, it's very important that you do, is that is just the tip of the iceberg of where these guys are coming from. We came across a document, which is, you can all find it. It's the 2012 Republican Party platform of Texas. And the reason we use that, Texas is a very large state, it's an influential state. And often, the ideology that comes out of Texas ends up spreading throughout the Republican rank and file. And this is what they believe. What they believe is they want to phase out, not tomorrow, they want to phase out Social Security. Because they don't believe, and this is important that you understand this, their worldview is the government is awful, and if you need retirement security when you're 65 or 70, you should have saved for it, or you can invest on Wall Street in the stock market. That's their view. But that the government should not be involved in retirement security and Social Security. 2 years ago, some of you may be familiar with the budget brought forth by Paul Ryan, the former vice presidential candidate, the chairman of the House Budget Committee. And what Ryan proposed is to end Medicare as we know it and convert it into a voucher program. What does that mean? It means that you give somebody who is 65 or 67 or whatever, you give them a check. I think the check was going to be for $8,000, and they can use that check any way they want it. Now, if you are diagnosed at the age of 67 or 70 with cancer, tell me how many days that $8,000 check is going to go for. One day, your first exam, right? And after that, hey, you're on your own. These guys are playing something else that people know. We're fighting right now, some of us, to raise the minimum wage. Minimum wage in Alabama is what, $7.25 an hour? Vermont, we've done a bit better. We're at age 60. There are some states, California, to its credit, just raised the minimum wage to $10 an hour. All right? So we are trying to raise the minimum wage to at least $10 an hour. That's what some of us are trying to do. And the reason for that is that most of the new jobs being created in America are part-time jobs without benefits, and they're low-wage jobs. That's one of the crises in America. You got a lot of people who are working 40, 50 hours a week, so they're not going anyplace in a hurry because they don't have jobs that pay them anywhere near a living wage. What is the Republican position? You might say, well, okay, probably the Republicans are opposed to raising the minimum wage. No. Their position is they want to abolish the concept of the minimum wage. Now, all of this has to do with a very weird ideology on their part, which suggests, because they hate government, and if you have Social Security, or Medicare, or Medicaid, or minimum wage, or federal aid to education, this is making us an unfree society. That's their ideology. So if I am an employer, and you are in a rural or urban, high unemployment area, and I say to you, Mary, I have a job for you at $4 an hour. And you can take it or leave it because you don't want to suspect there's somebody else who will take it. That's freedom. Because we don't have the government intervening and saying you have to pay at least a certain sum. So my point here is to understand that this right-wing stuff goes a lot further than the hatred of Obama. It goes a lot further than they're wanting to repeal Obamacare. Now, what are they afraid about? Now, I should tell you up front, I voted for the Affordable Care Act because I thought expanding health insurance to tens of millions more Americans was the right thing to do. There are other provisions in it, but I'm like, one of the things that I work very hard on is getting $12 billion into community health centers all over this country, which are providing very good quality, affordable health care. But I want to tell you up front, I believe that the Affordable Care Act is a step forward, but it doesn't go far enough, and that we should join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child has a right. And here is the point that you all have to understand when we talk about health care. And I don't know how often it's talked about here in Alabama, but it needs to be talked about. Not only is the United States of America the only nation in the industrialized world not to guarantee health care to all people, we are spending almost twice as much per person on health care as the people of any other nation. We had, a number of months ago, the ambassador from Denmark, small country, Scandinavia, came to Vermont. They are spending about 50% per person of what we spend on healthcare. And in Denmark, you know what? People go to the doctor's office. I don't even know if they have a card. They don't take their wallet out. They don't fill out any forms. They go to the doctor when they want it. You know how much it costs them? $0. They go to the hospital when they have to go. Costs them $0. Because it is a publicly funded program, as are the programs of virtually every other major country on earth. So not only today do we have 48 million people with no health insurance, do we have tens of millions more who have high deductibles and co-payments. Not only are our health care outcomes, how we do in terms of life expectancy and the treatment of various illnesses, worse than many other countries, but we end up for all of that paying almost twice as much per person. And the reason for that is our current healthcare system is not designed to provide the best quality care in the most cost-effective way. It is designed to make as much money as possible for the private insurance companies and for the drug companies. So I voted, for the Affordable Care Act, but we have got to go a lot further. But here's why the opposition to the Affordable Care Act, this is what it is. They're not worried that it may fail. They are staying up nights worrying that it may succeed. They're absolutely worried. Now, I think here in Alabama, your governor has not expanded Medicaid. Is that right? Why do you think that is? And why do you think in many Republican states that's not the case? Because of millions of people are able to get health insurance. What are they going to say? They say, you know what? Democracy actually works. Government may be a good thing. I want to thank the government, my government, for helping me and my kids get the health insurance that we need. And you know what? Maybe I'm going to get involved in the political process. Maybe it makes a difference who's elected or who's not elected. That's what they are afraid of. That's what they are afraid of. So, that's the Republican Party, which has become, over the years, a truly extremist party